Welcome to the RL Canning Tech Perspectives podcast, where we explore the latest trends in IT with expert perspectives and practical advice to help you prepare for what's next. In this episode, we are joined by Nexthink expert Dave Thomas to discuss Nexthink's new solution, AI Drive. Let's dive in.
Corey, how are you?
Good. Doing well.
Good. How was we're recording this the week after Thanksgiving. How was Thanksgiving?
It was great. It was good. We host over here, so enjoyed it. The only miss that we had is we didn't make green bean casserole. So that was we didn't realize until we're loading up plates and going, wait a second, we're missing something here. So I told my wife I'll have to make it this week to make up for it.
How many people do you guys host?
Not too many, just her side of the family, my side of the family. So that are here locally, and we may have 20 people, something like that.
That's pretty sizable.
Yeah. It's tough though. It's getting everybody around one table is almost impossible. So we usually split it up and have two. Some folks are outside, some folks are inside. But that's one of the benefits of Arizona, as you can.
I was going to say, yeah, it was freezing here. I mean, I love to grill, so I was the one making the turkey, and then we do a ham as well. But I mean, you walk outside, my hands were freezing.
Oh yeah. Well, didn't you guys get like 13 inches of snow or something ridiculous over?
It was the day after Thanksgiving. So that was the Friday. It started coming down. And then Saturday morning, woke up to, it was a winter wonderland. I was like, it's always the first snow of the year really shocks you.
Yeah.
And I was like, Jesus. And then made the mistake of driving home on Saturday during the middle of all that. And it was not fun. I mean, passing like 8 cars in the ditch. It was crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure. Did you made it home okay though?
I did. Nothing happened to me. It's normally, we were up in Wisconsin, so it's normally about a 90-minute drive. It took me 3 hours, mainly because you're just going 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, you're just taking it easy.
Wow. So, but it was good. But I have to say,
at least you weren't in a ditch.
Yeah. I have to say though, going back to the cooking, I think I made the greatest turkey I've ever had in my life. And I think I told you this while we were not recording, but my goal this year was, I like to smoke the turkey, which is good, but as everyone knows, turkey's very easy to dry out. And I feel like in years past, it's gotten really dry. So lowered the temperature down. I think I was at about 225 the whole time. Before I put it on, I separated the skin, put butter all throughout underneath the skin.
Oh.
Then I got one of those injector things, melted a whole nother stick of butter and injected it. The secret might just be load that thing off with butter and it's going to turn out just fine.
I feel like that's Dan's technique on everything. It's just, however much butter you think you need, just double that.
Exactly.
Wow. But it turned out well smoked?
Really good. It was amazing. The skin was perfect. But yeah, after you have 2 pieces, you're like, I'm stuffed. And it's so rich.
You gotta go do make sure you get that turkey trot in or something.
Exactly.
Gosh.
But yeah, let's set this up for today. So I think for those listening, we are going to bring in Dave Thomas, who is actually our Nexthink architect, to ask some questions. But the topic of today is specifically Nexthink AI Drive. And I guess, Corey, I'll hand it to you to maybe give it a little bit. You could probably give a better intro than I can of the tool. But I'll pass it over to you.
Awesome. Yeah. So this is something that we're obviously seeing a lot of customers, as we've talked about before, struggling with how to manage AI, track adoption, track value from the investments they've made, or they're to the point where they've made a lot of different pilots and different investments or testing groups. And now it's time to buckle down in 26 and say, okay, we need to achieve an ROI or have a tangible outcome for this. But they're struggling with how to do that, right? How do I manage it? How do I allow use, but don't lock it down completely? Kind of threading that needle when it comes to AI and making sure that they're reaching the goals that they want to reach. And so our solution has really been around AI Drive, that new capability from Nexthink. And it's around really tracking the data and value of different AI platforms from the endpoint collector that Nexthink has on the endpoints already. And so Dave, our resident expert and longtime architect with Nexthink, has already been in there for many weeks, kind of building it out, testing it. We've deployed it now, I think, for 2 or 3 customers, deployed it internally, or we're using it ourselves. And it's tremendous insight. I don't want to steal a lot of the thunder. I'm sure Dave will highlight of what we've seen with customer deployments, but it's very insightful. The data is very useful. It can either validate some assumptions or shed some light on some areas that may be unexpected or that you need to refocus on as a business. So it's really leveraging that collector to monitor and report on what AI is being leveraged from that end user device. So I think out of the box, it supports, the standard LLMs that are out there, like ChatGPT Perplexity. And then you can pretty much do anything from a custom standpoint and build out whatever may be used, or as things change, adjust it accordingly. So we're really using it to do that performance reporting. But the other key feature that we like is the ability to actually pop up and guide or steer your end user community towards whatever are those corporate approved. So even internally right now, if we go to navigate to ChatGPT, it's going to provide a little pop-up message that says, hey, this is not what is the corporate chosen platform. That is Copilot. Here's a link to launch Copilot. But if you do want to use this, please be sure not to do these things and share sensitive or proprietary data, et cetera. So trying to really inform those end users, making sure that they're adopting it, but not preventing it completely, because there is value to be had there on allowing folks to reference these and do so, but do so in an appropriate and safe manner.
Awesome. Well, yeah, with that, let's bring in Dave.
There he is.
Hey, Dave.
How's it going?
Going good. It's going good. Thanks for stopping in.
Our resident Nexthink expert. So how long have you been using Nexthink, Dave? How long have you been in the platform?
I've been using the platform for probably close to 8 years now.
Okay. You're an OG. I'm always impressed, and even others that we run into are always impressed with how the depth of your knowledge and experience of the platform. So yeah, want to make sure we outline that to the folks listening.
Yep. Way back in the on-prem days.
Well, that's awesome. Well, obviously your experience, Dave, but we really want to focus on the newer release from the platform, which is the Nexthink AI Drive. And I think just a good place to start. Corey already gave a kind of definition of the platform, so we don't need to go, or I should say the tool. So we don't need to go too in depth, but I think a good place to start was just ask you an overview of what AI Drive is. I know we've also released it now, or I should say deployed it with a few different clients. And we can get into that next, but let's just start off with your overview of what AI Drive is and the purpose of the tool.
Okay, sure. So AI Drive, it's kind of a great addition to what we've already got out there. It's a new section on the navigation. You can go into it, and it's pretty much dashboards dedicated to AI usage. There's a real good overview one, a great place to go in and compare what AI tools are being used in your environment. Are they the ones that you expect, first off? And second, if you've got any paid licenses for various platforms, are the folks using the tools that you intend them to use?
Mhm.
Or are they kind of going out, they've got preferences elsewhere for whatever case, maybe they're not aware of maybe more advanced features they may have access to with a paid license. So it gives you great insight into that, good visibility. It's a great way to really kind of get your finger on the pulse of what your users are engaging with as far as AI, and you can kind of spring off of that and drive them towards the tools that you prefer them to be in.
And right now it's still free. So if you have Nexthink, it is a free dashboard and capability that you can just enable.
Yep, that's correct. Part of the core platform now, super simple. Pretty much all of the AI tools that come out of the box with that just start working automatically. There's one that takes just an additional step. It's real lightweight integration with Intra, and that's to get that Copilot data. And the good thing about that is you can actually compare with that integration the usage of Copilot in your environment with the free version and against the licensed version. It'll actually separate that out for you.
Okay.
Make sure you're getting the value on those paid licenses.
Oh, that's a good feature, because we're even internally we have separate users that are leveraging free versus paid.
Absolutely. It's a good way to identify users that maybe there's good potential there to help enable them further. And maybe
Yeah.
you've got some users without a license that are real heavy users that could, really maximize the value of a license there.
Dave, when it comes to the AI platforms that it's tracking, is it limited to just we'll call them LLMs, so maybe employees using Copilot versus ChatGPT? Or does it capture, I guess we'll just call it the agentic AI that's coming out now, where people have AI built into specific softwares they're using? Does it capture any of that, or is it limited to, like I said, the LLMs?
So as long as it's web-based with the AI tools, it comes with a handful of kind of stock, if you want to call them that, options to monitor. But then you've got the ability to go in and set up additionals. So, I mean, this could even be homegrown tools that you're using day to day.
Yeah. So they could, if they had a web-enabled AI they've developed, you can monitor that and put it in the same dashboard and reporting, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Why don't you walk through one of the examples for the customers we've deployed it to? Because I know one of them, you mentioned the how well are folks adopting AI. There's a lot of folks we've talked to that have purchased Copilot for their entire organization. And this is a great way for them to actually gauge impact, value, adoption, et cetera. So kind of walk us through an example that, you deployed and what it unlocked around that idea of Copilot licensing.
Yeah, so we've got some customers out there that they kind of just covered their employee base in general, and their numbers look fantastic up front, right? Real heavily engaged, a ton of hours spent across the organization
Mm-hmm.
engaging with Copilot. And it's like, well, it's looking really good. You guys are really getting a lot out of this. And then you start to look at the number of users. And they've got an extremely high total number of users, but then you compare that to the total licenses that they hold as a company. There's really some opportunity to maybe pull back a little bit. And even those folks that are using it, that's one of the great things that it monitors is not just are they engaging with it, but how frequently, how
Yep.
many times a week, how many hours on average in a given day in a week. So you can see there's a quadrant in there as well that maps your users out. So you could have people diving really deep that may be in Copilot for 3-4 hours in a given day, but they're only in Copilot 1 day a week. Then you've got kind of another quadrant that shows you your folks that they may be touching Copilot every single day or another AI every single day, but they're only in there for 10-15 minutes, maybe 1-2 queries here. And it really will kind of help maybe build policy or even guidelines about how you deploy your paid licenses.
Yeah. Yeah. It was the data the dashboard, I guess, you showed me was really insightful because initially, like you said, it looked great. Like they were seeing primarily Copilot adoption. There wasn't widespread or, significant use of the other LLMs or AI platforms that are out there. So that was good. We saw, hundreds of days of total usage or employee time spent on it. So really good use and adoption. But when you put it in context of, wait a second, they have 5,000 plus licenses of Copilot, but only 1,800 weekly users, that's not good adoption. It can be really insightful like that because obviously the action for that customer is work on a campaign around awareness, CM, adoption, enablement, all of that around the use cases of Copilot to make sure you get that 1,800 up to the full 5,000, or reallocate that spend elsewhere to some other users that may be using other LLMs that don't have the Copilot license, right? They can be more strategic with how they're deploying it.
Absolutely. One of the other great things that another way that you can look at the data is since we're integrated with Entra anyways, we're pulling some of that user data back, things like departments. So we talked about this yesterday, and some of the reasons that may be important, if you see, let's say your HR department, right? So maybe overall Copilot adoption is going really good, but you see HR with heavy usage in some of these other, let's call them public tools versus, a more contained Copilot environment. That's a real good place to take a look real fast and say, hey, let's maybe have a conversation of why Copilot, you feel like Copilot's not a better fit than these other tools. And let's talk about what data is going into these public tools, given your role in a given department that maybe you're in a more primarily dealing with more sensitive information or more proprietary information. You can look by department and see that usage broken down across there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Organizations have to be careful about that because I think in the other examples that we've deployed, or this may be the case for all of them, actually, the AI that was in use was greater than what the expectations of our, IT leadership was expecting, right? So we saw on these things like DeepSeek and Gemini or Perplexity that on the surface, the customer wouldn't have thought was present in their environment. And those are being leveraged. So you got to be careful what's being placed into those platforms. It's, it is sensitive, is customer data, is proprietary data being there, because that's a real risk.
One of the things that we're doing to address that internally that we just went live with this week as well is actually pairing this with another module, which is Adopt. So one of the great purposes that we found to tie Adopt and the AI tools together is we don't necessarily want to go out and do a hard block on these sites. We understand there's value there. There's legitimate reasons people may use something other than Copilot, but we have a pretty strict policy around that. So what we're able to do with Adopt is when they navigate to these sites, these less preferred sites, before they're actually able to interact with the site itself, Adopt will pop up a brief bullet point version of our AI acceptable use policy for these end users. And we can do things like add hyperlinks to that message as well. And, our first bullet point is, hey, you should probably try Copilot first before you go
Yeah.
to another
Yeah.
tool. And right in that message, we can redirect them to Copilot, the preferred tool. Because a lot of times people may just get in a habit and they kind of gain a favorite through their
Yeah.
routine. And through no fault of their own, just the habits they've built, they're not even thinking of going to Copilot, right? I use ChatGPT in my regular day-to-day life
Yep.
outside of work. That's just what I'm used to. So when I'm going to go seek help, it's kind of like Google, right, as a search engine. That's even kind of become a phrase. Have you Googled that?
Yep.
So they're building those habits with their personal experiences, and it's a great way to remind them, hey, you know what, you're on a work device right now. These are what are acceptable to do while you're at
Yep.
work. If you don't have a preference, we really would rather you use our preferred tool, and
Yeah.
we'll redirect you.
I've talked to customers twice in the last couple of weeks that have said that their C-level team is coming to them asking for Chat GPT because that's what they're using in their personal life, even though they've made investments in other platforms. So
Yeah.
very common. And I've struggled for a while to really understand a good use case for Adopt that you couldn't achieve through some other mechanism or some other tool. This to me is just such a perfect execution or use of that capability because of that the ability that you're kind of managing it, but in a soft manner, right?
Mhm.
You're still allowing them to use it because there is value in many cases for folks to leverage these and be more productive. You don't want to do the hard cut. We have some organizations that we've engaged with that have done that. And I feel like it's like parenting, right? If you prevent your kid from ever, hey, you can never do anything with that, then once they get access to it or you allow them to, they kind of go crazy just because it's been something that it's been off limits for so long. And I always feel like, folks will find a way. So even in organizations, I know we talked to some folks, Dave, that they had said, hey, we're blocking everything, but then they still see use of Chat GPT or other things because people are finding a workaround or a mechanism of getting there, or they're doing it on another device and then still using the data. So the risk doesn't necessarily go away. So the best option is to do what we're talking about here, is manage it, guide them and direct them towards corporate policy and remind them, like you said, should be used and how it should be used, and then report on it and track how it's being leveraged so that you can make more insightful decisions and further enable the usage of it. So I think this is just a perfect use case of Adopt for Nexthink.
Yeah, they paired really nicely together.
Hey, Dave, going back to the deployment you talked about when you first joined of the company who had, I think it was 5,000 licenses, but only 1,800 people utilizing them. I don't know how much of a chance you had to, I guess, interpret all of that data, but do you know what the reasons were for that 3,000 not adopting? It was Copilot, right? Do you know if it was by department or if it was either resistance to AI overall, or if it was more these 3,000 people, many of them had other tools that they were using?
So we haven't dug too terribly deep into the data yet. We're looking at it at the service level, continuing to let that data come in, those metrics build, and try to get some trends building before we take too much direct action. But what we're seeing right now is it didn't seem to be terribly isolated. So there was some level of usage across pretty much every department. It varied from department to department and what those roles were. But when you go completely organization wide, it probably doesn't matter what industry you're in. But let's say manufacturing, right? There's a lot of employees there that, their engagement with technology outside of maybe working on the factory floor, those various machines and things like that, they probably don't see the value in those tools, not to an extent that they're going to fully utilize a paid license, for example. So that's a great opportunity to kind of identify those folks. Some may be against it. It's still relatively new, right? Change takes a while for everybody to adapt and fully integrate, but it really helps identify those because you can always come back and apply those licenses later if the situation changes or the need arises. But letting them sit there as essentially shelfware, it's at scale, it gets pretty expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we've done some other deployments too. Was that the biggest gap you've seen in terms of AI adoption? Or I guess what were the numbers on the other two?
That's the biggest gap so far. On the other end of the spectrum is what I see. I haven't really found anyone that's found the happy medium yet, because on the other end, it's we've got 10 licenses and we've got these people trying them out. And someone else gets words on their team. They get really excited about it. They think they're going to use it. So maybe we'll pick up another license for them. But it's very much request and give me heavy justification because we're not sure what route we're going to go or how heavy we're going to allow this to be used. So a little bit of both. But the environment with where companies are not pushing Copilot, you see a higher number of these external AIs being used, right? Because there's folks in every organization that are interested in this. They're finding use for this. They're finding value in these tools. So that's kind of the dangerous end of the other end of the spectrum. If you're not guiding them and providing them these tools, they're going to go find something on their own, which may be something that doesn't align with policy or the business.
Yep. That's a good if you would graph it essentially for the customers that are leading and saying, "Hey, we've purchased Copilot. We're very clear. You all have it. This is our corporate focus." And I guess it doesn't really matter if it's Copilot or any, but they've staked that claim that this is our AI platform. We see really high adoption of that, and then it drops off very rapidly, right? In terms of the other ones, the distribution of clients that haven't done that have done more of the piecemeal approach you outlined. That's more of kind of a normal or scattered distribution across all of these, right? Where we don't see it really focused in one, but we see Gemini, Perplexity, ChatGPT, Claude, DeepSeek even. I was shocked at it that we saw. I don't think we've done one yet that we didn't see DeepSeek in. Is that correct?
Really?
Yeah, at least one user at a minimum. So there's that. That's something I always like to do anytime I do a new use case with a customer or a new feature comes out or something like that. It's just kind of a little friendly gentleman's bet, kind of an internal joke amongst me and the customer teams that we're doing this. Like, all right, how much control do you think you actually have on this in your environment? Are you only going to see Copilot? You think you're going to see additional things? Very strict. Oh, we've got this or that. Some of them are a little more probably honest with themselves. And they're like, yeah, we're probably going to see a little bit of everything. But for the most part, every single customer has had a surprise on some level when they started looking at this data.
Yeah. Look at you. You're Nexthink shark. You're hedging the bet against here. You know what the answer is going to be, and you're still lining them up.
Yeah, especially the more and more customers that we enable this on. Every time my data set gets more concrete, I've got a much better idea of what we're going to see in a customer's environment before we even turn it on, and they're still a little in the darks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And along the lines of DeepSeek, is that going back to your conversation around which I guess you call them the stock AI tools that are going to be tracked? Is DeepSeek included in that? What about, I don't know an example off the top of my head that would be another, I guess, chatbot you just wouldn't want your employees using. But is that stock pretty robust in terms of the tools it tracks, or are you going to or organizations have to be aware of the DeepSeeks of the world in order to start tracking them?
So probably a little bit of both, and that's just due to the nature of how fast this is moving and how quickly things are, different variants are popping up. I have spoke with some folks at Nexthink at the moment, and they expect that to eventually expand the out of the box portion over time. But right now you're looking at ChatGPT, Claude, DeepSeek, Gemini, Copilot, Perplexity, and then Nexthink Assist as well. So that's one of the great things about Nexthink that a lot of other tools don't provide is they're very open and forward about monitoring itself, its impact to the environment. It does have some AI included in it that can be enabled. So right up front, they're including that in the package to watch the engagement on that as well.
Yeah. And I think that really is a value of them, anybody who's interested or even on Nexthink today, leveraging a partner like us this is not you go in and flip a switch and boom, you're now monitoring all possible AIs in your environment. This is really something that like anything takes proper care and feeding, and coming to a partner like us that has, is a Nexthink partner, has multiple customers. Our set of criteria that we're going to have is going to continue to snowball and expand to where we could easily deploy kind of our RLC standard list that would include all of these things. I know just a few weeks ago, I found out about one called Poe, P-O-E, that is a subscription service that gets you access to all of the major LLMs. And so that's one that we can add to our list and, would be valuable to show customers so that they're not having to go and play whack-a-mole and keep up on every new AI tool or website or, workaround on these. We can really maintain that for them and just continue to keep it updated and learn, they'll kind of get the value of the to learn scar tissue from all of our customer base.
I'm trying
What
to
else
stay
would you
quiet so we
highlight,
could
Dave?
yeah. I was like,
No, that what I would probably add on was one of your kind of bounced off one of your comments earlier. There are probably a few that are higher risk that companies may just want no traffic to in their environments. But I think communication to your end users is probably the most important piece here.
Yeah.
So once you have that visibility, really pairing it with something else that lets them know what is acceptable. Just because we're doesn't block it or we're not blocking a particular site or a
Yeah.
particular AI doesn't mean that you've got free reign there.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
For
100%.
example, in our environment, we have a lot of customer data, things like that. So that that's just a hard no. That can't be in anything public.
Yeah.
And then internal data, stuff like that as well. So just keeping that communication up of what is appropriate. But I mean, if you want to go out and ask a general question and you've got, one tool preference over another, if it's generic and there's nothing, business specific, at least us internally, that's fine with us. So just reminding those users of, what's acceptable on which tool.
Yeah.
And it's changing so fast and there's so many options popping up right now. It's great to have a way to, really kind of stay in front of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the visibility is key just to validate what reality is, right? Because even though you may block it, folks will find a way. So I think the visibility and then the AI literacy based on the data that you're finding is really going to be important.
Yep. And the longer this is in the environment, the more valuable that data is going to become as well.
Mhm.
Because these licenses are subscription based, right? For Copilot and things like that. So just because you may find that perfect balance, right? And you've got everything ironed out today, 6, 8, 12, 24 months from now is, we don't really know what that's going to look like yet. So your usage, what is that going to look like?
Yeah.
And it calls out your drop off quite clearly in these dashboards as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the data by department is really important for that as well, because you're going to have, you'll be able to track usage over time. And you may find, hey, my development team is using Claude and that's really their preferred and they're the heavy user of that. It may not be one size fits all, right?
Yep.
You may be able to get the masses Copilot, but you'll still have other niche needs within your environment. But a tool like this and visibility and tracking of it, you can not only adjust based on what real world usage is, but also monitor and track to make sure that if you are enabling one team to kind of use something else, that isn't being leveraged by others or in areas it shouldn't be.
And the great way to kind of get that feedback comes with AI tools and AI Drive as well, is you can actually enable campaigns on each of these individual AI tools. So when there's something that pops up that's maybe not normally used in the environment or even just your general users over time, you can actually address them with a campaign and be like, hey, we saw you were using Claude. Can you tell me how much time you estimate that this saves you in a given week? So help tell us your story, why this is
Yeah.
valuable to us, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's like, okay, so you think it saves you, 10 hours a week. That's fantastic. They're real short. There's a second follow-up question is basically what were you trying to do? And then it goes through and it summarizes those users' answers and categorizes them. So you'll come in and you'll see perceived savings is 10 hours on Claude. And
Yeah.
the top 3 uses for that are general inquiries, code validation, et cetera. It'll kind of group those into different categories. So not just the data, which is nice to know what people are using, but if you enable those campaigns as well and allow feedback from your users, you get a lot of context around that as well.
That is a great example. I'm so happy you shared that, Dave, because not only a great example of bringing Nexthink, other capabilities of Nexthink as a DEX platform together with this AI Drive, but really meaningful for IT leadership and for folks out there that being a employee experience and data driven organization is critical to some of these decisions. Don't just make what you feel is best or what you are coming to based on spot checking or reaching out to a few individuals in the organization. Continuously monitor, track what's being used, and then campaign and survey those users why they're doing it to either inform your literacy campaigns or shift how you're actually delivering and which tools you're delivering to your employees. So that's a great example of the power of Dex paired with this AI need right now.
It
Exactly.
is. It kind of makes me rethink of how organizations are going to adopt AI tools. I guess I've been a little obsessed is probably too extreme, but very interested to see which LLM kind of comes out on top here, which one's the best. But the reality might just be different departments are going to prefer different tools. Again, yeah, phenomenal example, Dave.
It also shines a light on the perception that you're going to be fighting when trying to drive a particular tool, because,
Mhm.
a lot of times perception's more than half your battle right there. And
Yeah.
if the data that you're getting back, you're trying to drive your users to, say, these paid Copilot license, but when you get this feedback from these campaigns and your perception is from, the masses that Copilot is saving them less than half the time that these other tools are saving them, doesn't mean that has to be the end all be all, but you can start to fight that perception with doing things like we've done, Corey, setting up
Yep.
unique agents for specific purposes within
Yep.
Copilot. Finding a way to make them feel empowered and like it is saving just as much or more time than the less preferred tools are, and that will help kind of reduce the friction when you're trying to redirect them to a preferred tool.
Yeah. Yeah. Those campaigns will provide the data to guide your decisions on, maybe it is just a literacy piece, or maybe it is that this is the wrong platform, that functionality just doesn't align to their needs, or
Yep.
you just have folks that are failing to adopt and refusing to use it, right? I mean, that is so, so powerful because the spectrum, through some of the assessments we've done, the spectrum of responses we get around topics like this always surprises me. That you have some folks that are like, I'm not using it, I'm never using it, or other folks that have really well thought out reasons as to why, no, I prefer this, and here's a list of reasons why and why it makes me more productive. Having that data at your fingertips and consolidated to make meaningful decisions as an IT leader. Again, one of the huge powers of a Dex platform like Nexthink.
Yeah. So that's always my recommendation as well to our customers is to get those campaigns turned on.
Hmm.
They're very lightweight. They're really not impactful to your end user's day. These examples, it's two quick questions, but the value you get from, a couple clicks from your end users sending that back is a lot, high
Yeah.
value in that information.
Yeah. One thing I want to double click into though is the effort it takes to spin this up. Because is it easy? Is it would you what guidance would you give customers that are saying, they listen to this or they see the releases from Nexthink and they say, I want AI Drive. I'm gonna go and turn this thing up, right? Like what would you recommend that they be thinking about, or what would you convey around the level of effort that it's gonna take them?
So there's a couple different things to consider. It's a great start out of the box, right? But then going out, maybe going through some of the destination information that we're pulling back in Nexthink already. There's a few other dashboards that are available in the Nexthink library that will help shed some light on some other potential things
Hmm.
or tools that the users may be using. So going in and setting up those additional tools, there's a small learning curve with that, but it is a little bit of a time suck hitting these learning curves every time something new and anything like that comes out. So far with all of our existing customers, we've kind of built that trust with them. They
Yeah.
know that we've got this experience and we can implement it so much faster than they'd be able to on their own. So they do, they're just kind of reaching out to us and, hey, when can we get this on? This was
Yeah.
a really cool one actually because they announced it at Experience. So this is one of the first feature releases that we've had where every single one of our customers were pinging us before it was even at general release. Hey, can we get in the technical preview? Hey, when can we get this turned on? What do you need anything from us? So
Yeah.
it's nice. The other thing that we can really help save a lot of time on is when you get like to Copilot and it requires
Mhm.
that integration to pull that data back, it's not just pulling it from the collector. But when we did it internally, it took us a little more time than it probably should have to figure out everything. We were just seeing if we could combine it with existing integrations, if it needed to be a standalone app, et cetera. And
Mhm.
we've got that down now to where when we get on a phone with our resources, right, we're like, this is going to be a pretty smooth integration.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's an important takeaway is that there has been, I mean, I know you immediately dove into this and sunk your teeth into it coming out of the Nexthink conference, but it's taken many weeks and a lot of learning of how to, what are kind of best practices, right? The right
Yeah.
way to do this, the most efficient or effective way to do this on just the initial setup and configuration. But also, this is not like most things with Nexthink or any DEX platform, really getting the most out of it. It is a constant effort to maximize that return. You're not going to set it and forget it. You need to come back to it and continue to expand it, do campaigns, adjust, review the data, right? To maximize that. I think, what is it that Zach says? No matter how many people you put on Nexthink, it can never be enough. Right? You could put 50, you could put 100, you could put 150, but the more that you analyze the data, the more actions you're going to think of to take, the more campaigns you can run. It really is this flywheel that just takes constant care and feeding, but can be incredibly valuable to an organization and provide data for their decision making. So terrific.
Yeah. There's a lot of power in it, just knocking all the low hanging fruit. But that's something we always push and encourage our customers to do is don't stop there, right?
Yep.
Find the next thing. Find a way to empower your level ones or your level twos with tasks that were previously seated with kind of a different persona, maybe an engineer role or something like that. What can we automate out of that to where, we can, consistently repeat a remediation or a fix or anything like that? So keep passing that down and freeing up those higher tiered resources to stop fighting fires and doing more project based stuff. And
Yeah.
as soon as you get into that, there's something else that we're going to be able to jump into with Nexthink and monitor or find way to gain efficiencies back.
Yeah, you can always further optimize, right?
Yeah.
I think of when we automate a task and then you do a campaign to survey them and they say, well, yeah, that was great, but I still had to do this, this, and this, right? You can further come back and enhance and optimize those. It's really, you'll be doing it for another 8 years at least, Dave, I'm sure.
I think so. And at the speed they're advancing the tool itself, that in itself is a full-time job, keeping up with all the new content, all the new features and
Oh, yeah.
functions that are coming out.
Yeah. I feel like you're always testing something. I'm usually a guinea pig for that, where I'll get a pop-up ask me about the productivity impact of Copilot. I'm going, Dave, what are you sending me?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a useful platform for sure.
You're talking about lessons learned, that we bring to the table. I can remember back when we were testing, using you as our guinea pig to test the team's automated fix. We found out real quick when you had to jump into a meeting afterwards that, clearing the cache in the fashion we were also took away all your custom backgrounds.
Yeah. Oh.
You're like, Dave, what did you do?
Yeah, I thought you were fixing me. You're hurting me, Dave, not helping me. No, but it's that's why we like, being our best and first customer here, is because we gain a lot of this experience, and some of the scar tissue is on ourselves. But that's the benefit of being a partner with Nexthink and getting early access to a lot of this stuff. They continue to develop, and I'm interested to see what they continue to do around this AI space, because I'd love to see it, us be able to build kind of proprietary RL canning packages that have what we feel are the best or industry leading AI solutions that we would be monitoring and alerting for and tracking and reporting on. But I'd love to see something. Can they use AI to automate this, right? Why are we having to manually configure these flows and build out these URLs and all of that? To me, that seems like something we could build an agent to do, right? Okay, go here and find new AI tools, find new AI websites, build out the script for me, build out the flow. And so I'm very interested to see how we may be able to leverage either internally in AI or a Copilot agent, or if Nexthink's going to pursue something like that.
I would say they're definitely pursuing something like that. There's levels of functionality. They kind of vary depending on, what you're trying to build or what you're trying to do. But there's areas where Nexthink Assist will come in a flow and help you build out a particular portion of it. It's getting pretty good about writing investigations for you. So when you want to run an investigation or a query, a lot of our customers like to stick to that visual editor. It's a drop down. It's clean. You don't have to type a query in code or anything like that. But when they start getting more mature, their queries start getting more complicated. They start asking harder questions and things like that. Syst is coming in and doing a pretty good job where you come in and just, ask it a question like, hey, show me all the devices that have this software and tell me which version is crashing the most. And it's getting better at handling things like that.
In Assist, is there ChatGPT-esque little AI assistant that can help admins and users to properly use the platform, correct?
Yep. When it's enabled, it essentially takes over your search function within the tool itself.
And that exists today, Dave? That agent has access to all of your data, so you can
It does.
ask it questions? I mean, that's really powerful.
It is. It's pretty cool. One of the things I like to show off in demos and things like that. I mean, you can even go in and just ask it, what should I focus on today? And it's going to go through your environment, the data that it's got there. It's going to say, hey, we're seeing this, your deck score. These are your biggest kind of dings to your score, so to speak. It'll build a little action item plan for you. So it's pretty slick, and it
Yeah.
it keeps
Wow.
getting better.
Yeah.
Talk about always optimizing. You can just play around with that thing all day, you know?
Doing what Assist tells me to do.
Yeah.
And the thing I love about it is that they're also being honest, them being Nexthink, that this isn't going to be the end all be all agent to rule
Yeah.
them all, right? You're still going to have Copilot or ServiceNow or something that's kind of the primary engagement point for your customers. And so they already, when they announced, some of the features at Experience, they said, hey, it's going to have a ServiceNow integration. It's going to have a few other integrations as well as a published API that you can interface with, because like your reaction, Tyler, that the access and insight that agent can provide with all the data it has on that endpoint is very, very powerful. But to fully support that end user and requests that we know are going to come up, you also have to have folks that have access to HR data and systems, access to CRM information, right? And so this is going to be that really powerful and insightful agent for the endpoint and the user experience, and it will fit into that larger AI ecosystem. So I'm glad that they're being realistic and honest and thinking that way.
My favorite part about that is the tool sounds great, but we finally have someone that's being honest about what it can do today and what it cannot do today. It's just an AI tool that was released and they're like, listen, it's a great tool. It's not going to change the world, but it's a great tool.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. There's a lot of over promising, under delivering out there for sure.
One of the things I'm looking forward to the most, it might not be one of the flashiest things coming out, but they talked about this at Experience as well. I think they're calling it Workspaces, but essentially it's with Nexthink Assist. So right now, when you interact with it, it's kind of a pop-up in the center of your screen and overlay. And those that are familiar with it know the pain of clicking out of that window and you lose your conversation you'd been working on or additional investigations it was building with you or things like that. So it's going to become its own section now and tab and kind of hold on to those conversations. You can go back, jump into them, have separate conversations with it at the same time, things like that. And I think it's a simple thing, but I think it's going to be a powerful thing and really help with driving usage of Assist within Nexthink.
And is that primarily going to be for end users or for admins on the platform?
It's primarily for use with folks that have access to the portal. So that
Okay.
it depends on company to company who they allow access to that. For me, the more people that have access, the better, right? Get them in there, get them looking. Your typical end user may not be the right audience for that, but definitely anyone in IT, any of your application owners, if you start really getting heavy into these campaigns and various different integrations, things like onboarding workflows, you can get your HR teams in there looking at it, things like that as well.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I love with what we're doing with ServiceNow and playbooks and integrating with Salesforce and other solutions to automate that onboarding, plugging in and knowing they have a ServiceNow connector to provide us insight. Because one of the most intriguing things for me is this integration and being able to understand, track and monitor performance post onboarding, post initial, like day one. You check in 30, 60, 90 days. You say, hey, their deck score is lower than the rest of the organization, or I see they're challenging this, or I see they're using AI. You can really customize and focus a proper education and kind of initiation plan for that individual that will make sure that they're doing the right things as they get set up and onboard to the organization, more than just deploying the laptop and getting their accounts created, etc.
Yeah. Yep.
That's awesome. It's a good use case.
I have to say, I'm very happy we brought you on. We've talked about Nexthink briefly before in the past, but for today, we were like, let's bring in the expert. So just want to say thanks for joining us. We'll have to bring you back on maybe towards the in a month or so in the middle of winter, and we'll see how much longer your beard gets.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on. We'll bring you back on once we get a few more implementations under our belt to talk about how things are going, what else you're seeing.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.